Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am Niamh Cassidy, your host and business and mindset coach for birth and postpartum workers. And I am joined today by Jen, who is a life and business coach, parent educator, mentor, and doula trainer with over 15 years experience supporting people through their biggest life's transitions. She has trained and mentored hundreds of doulas, supported thousands of families, and was the co-founder of Ireland's first ever national doula agency. And in 2026, she is leading multiple group doula trainings and continuing her work shaping skilled and grounded birth workers. And Jen and I go back a long time, so we both would have completed the same antenatal educator training. We're both breastfeeding counsellors from the same charity as well, so we do know each other a long time, and we're also neighbours. So thanks so much for joining me, Jen.
You're so welcome, Niamh. It's great to finally get on. Life is always busy, but it's lovely to come and join you today and have a good chat.
It absolutely is. And we were just catching up before we came in, me talking about my building work and you talking about your move. So life is always busy.
True. I know. But I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, how life brings you on all these different journeys and still you kind of end up crossing paths with people along the way.
It is, and it's really lovely getting to have the chat with you. And I think it's going to be really helpful for people in particular who are in the starting part of their journey into the birth work journey, because we both remember what it was like to be there and the challenges and the struggles that we had. And at the, we're both making it our work to help people on their business journeys and to become birth workers and to be able to support the clients that we know need their help, because that is where the passion that we have is. And being able to bring this conversation where we're going to talk about kind of getting the foundations right when you're getting started into this work, and whether that's around kind of your mindset, the training that you do, the things to focus on, the things not to focus on, I think we'll probably talk about a lot. So hopefully it will be helpful for all the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Niamh, as well, one of the big things that you and I really align on is that there's this feeling in the birth world, so anyone that supports pregnancy, birth, or parents, that it's a vocation, not a career.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if we even think back to when we were training and we're coming up to the end of the training, and you in particular, you were really getting ready to finish up. And for people who are listening, the antenatal training that we did was 2.5 years long minimum. So it was really detailed in the support end, but maybe not so much in the running a business end. And Jen, you were really important in that part, in kind of bringing us as a group forward in this idea that we were actually running businesses as well. And I definitely think that's where you and I clicked, as you said, a lot about it. We were like, this is an important part of what we're doing. Yes, we love the work, but if we can't make a living for it, what's going to happen?
When it's somebody who needs financial stability from the work and they're sacrificing their family, their well-being, they're having to cut back on things in order to do this work, that's where I think there's a big gap in the support that's out there, where they can be shown how do you actually turn this into a viable business,
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of people out there that speak online in absolutes. And I'm definitely not an absolute person. I think it's looking at every individual and their situation. And some people only want to do this part-time, maybe because they want to stay in this world. And some people are like, this is going to be my full-time career. I want to grow it. I want, they might have really aspirational goals. They want to go global, whatever it is. So it's meeting people where they are. And not having that absolute view that this is the way everybody should do it.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is so true, because we can get caught up in the noise. We can get caught up in the noise of what we're hearing online, of what we're seeing other people doing, and think that everything's black and white, or there's only one right way. And we're seeing a lot of that in the birth world anyway, even outside of business. We're seeing a lot of more kind of conflict happening, I suppose, within the world itself.
Mm.
And there can be good reasons for that. Obviously, we've got challenges in our maternity systems and all of the terrible things that are happening in the world. There can be reason for it, but as much as that doesn't help parents,
Mm.
in that stage when we're supporting people in business, in their birth work business or whatever it is. Again, speaking in those black and whites, those absolutes, like you should only, you can only, you must, or you must not, that doesn't allow for those nuances of what works for actual people. So it is okay if you want to be a hobbyist birth worker, if that's what works for you. It's okay to do it part-time on top of your full-time job, and it's okay to want it to be something that is financially rewarding for you as well. All of those things are okay. So let's see what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think at the end of the day, anything to do with birth or parenting work, you have to have that, not calling necessarily, but you have to feel a pull to it because it is very emotive work, as in it takes a lot from you as the care provider. And it's something that I think you have to really feel fulfilled in doing. And it's just about working out then how does that work into your life, and understanding where you want your energy to go and how much energy and time you have to give to different things. And I think that's something that's not really discussed in a lot of trainings, like across the board, where you're actually sitting down and thinking, okay, how much time do I have to dedicate to this? How much energy? What happens if something comes up in my work life or my private life? How do I kind of move things around? And people just tend to kind of jump in and coast and hope it works out. And that's where we see so many people training in all across the board,
Mm-hmm.
antenatal educators, IBCLCs, doulas, that they jump into it, they love it, they're all excited, they give it all, they're not earning money, they're not getting people show up to their classes or courses, and then they just leave or burn out. And that's something I know that you and I are both really passionate about. It's keeping the people in the roles because really it's the parents that lose out.
Exactly. And that, like, when I set up the collective and I started saying, I want to do this, I want to help more people with the business end of it. That's exactly why, because all I was seeing was people saying, I can't make this work. I have to go back to work full time, or I'm rounding up my business. And I still see these posts on Instagram all the time. I've made the really hard decision too. And it's people who are brilliant at this work and can help so many people
Yeah.
stopping because they haven't been able to just make it work for them in their lives and their financial situation or whatever it might be. They haven't been able to get that support, or it wasn't available to them, or for whatever reason they didn't get it, and they make a decision that has been hard for them. And for some people it is 100% the right decision. Maybe this work wasn't for them, but for a lot of people what I see is that they really want to do the work, but
Mm.
all of these other things have meant that they've had to step away from it, and that just it hurts me.
I know. I think, well, for anybody listening to know, the parents are there, the work
Mhm.
is there. There is endless work. We're at the cusp, like we are at the very beginning of doula work, private antenatal work, IBCLCs outside of the hospital system. Like we are really at the beginning of that. And babies are born every day, So the work is there. It's just about learning who you are, what's important to you, and how people can find you and connect with you. So like we hear the doom and gloom. It's nearly a bit like where parents share like, their horror stories and no one
Yeah.
talks about the incredible birth stories. So it's the same with business. There are so many successful businesses out there in this field. So it can absolutely be done, and in a wide spectrum
Hmm.
of the few hours a week to the full-time career to whatever it is. So it can and is done. So don't give up hope for anyone who's listening or watching this.
Yeah, and I think, this is something that comes up all the time. I'm like, there's loads of babies, when someone's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I live in a small town or this, and I'm like, well, how many babies are born in your county or your town a year?
Mm.
There is people out there who need your support. Not all of those people want your support, of course. I'm not talking about every single baby, but there's definitely enough work out there to go around. And I fully agree that we're kind of at the start of this, that we're still a fledgling industry, and there's so much more success and wonderful things to come. And if we think about kind of that excitement that people have at the start, so you
Mm.
train a lot of doulas, so you
Yeah.
see them in that moment where they're they're so excited to learn, and they're so excited to do this work. And I remember being there myself. I'm like ready to teach my classes, and I'm going out and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm here to save the world, you know. It's like I know what I have to offer
Yeah.
is important. And then there can be this kind of slow or very fast realization that this is actually, it can be harder to do, because we haven't necessarily always thought about the fact that we're also going to be a business owner
Yes.
when doing this. So when people are, you know, as, if we put your trainer hat on and you're dealing with those people at that stage, kind of what, at that really early stage, either before they decide to train, you know, so they've had their own experiences and they've decided, you know, this is the way I want to go, or
Mm.
they're in their early training, what are the kind of really basic foundations that you think are helpful for people, like right then in that really early moment?
Yeah, amazing question, Eve. So for me, I dedicate a whole module of my doula training to setting up and growing a sustainable business. And I think that's something that's really missing in a lot of these trainings. But throughout the training, I think it's really important for everyone to understand their own core values and their own boundaries and belief systems, and bringing that awareness to that, you know. So, like, what's really important to me? What type of people do I want to work with? What type of people do I not want to work with? You know, how much time do I have to give to this so that they're not crossing their own boundaries and burning out? I talk a lot about what can they do to debrief themselves, because inevitably when you're working with birth or parenting in some way, you're going to hear trauma stories, and you're going to be working with parents who are in heightened emotional states. So if you're the type of person drawn to this, generally you're an empath and you're going to absorb that, you know. So how do you let that go out of your body, out of your mind? Is it meeting a friend for a walk and a good chat like we have done, Neve? Is
Mhm.
it going for, you know, body work like a nice massage or acupuncture, whatever? So it's finding what works for you to kind of process everything. So I think understanding your core values, your belief, debriefing your own experiences before you start the work. So you're not going in to save the world, like you said,
Yeah.
Neve, that you're going in with kind of unbiased, non-judgmental support, meeting parents where they're at, not what
Mhm.
you think should be done or whatever. Then I think it's really, really important to understand that you cannot and will not know everything. I think that's something that really makes people fall, because they don't feel ready and they go into situations and they feel like, but I don't know the answers to the questions parents are asking me. So, a core thing I talk about in my trainings is you don't have to know everything. You just need to know where to find the information and how to make sure that it's solid evidence based information. So, we go through how you know if something, you know, is from an impartial source. Was it funded by, you know, an unethical company or whatever? So we go through all that. So you never have to know all the information. You just need to know how to decipher information to pass on.
I think that's really important. Kind of everything that you brought up there that you're talking about are things that if someone's choosing to train with a provider, that they should be looking for, is this type of stuff covered, you know.
Mm.
Like when we did our antenatal education, we had to do huge amount of reflections on our own journeys, our own breastfeeding journeys, our own birth, so that we weren't going into that world with those biases and holding on to all of that. So like obviously there are loads of trainings out there, there's lots of wonderful trainings out there, but there's also lots of very short, very quick trainings that might not give people the depth and the nuance that they need to survive birth work, you know, to
Yeah.
get through it whole for themselves, but also to be the best birth worker they can be by not taking in those kind of biases and different things as well.
Yeah, and I think it's like really doing the research and like looking up the trainers or the organizations and seeing like what do they stand for, you
Mhm.
know? And like some trainers or training organizations are very kind of like birth activists, and certain people will be called to that, and certain people will be called, you know, more to like a training like me where I believe absolutely in collaboration.
Mhm.
So I believe that the only way doulas and other birth workers are going to really thrive, especially in a country like Ireland, is if we can collaborate with the maternity systems that are already in place. So, like, yes, absolutely, you advocate for change. Yes, absolutely, you speak up when things are wrong in the system. But I believe there's always a place for professional courtesy and having those conversations in a respectful manner so that you can put across the point of view, they can put across their point of view, and then everyone can figure out how we can actually support what matters, which are the parents and the babies.
And I think that's really important because I would feel the same
Yeah.
way. I feel a lot of like that there's nothing wrong with being drawn one way or the other. But for me, I feel that sometimes activism can do harm to actually the parents because it's not benefiting the parent that you're working with right now. You know, it might benefit in the future, but there's a lot of fear-based activism, I suppose, is one of the
Mm.
things that I would find challenging around people because we still know even all those people that see that are most likely going to have their babies in the hospital anyway, you know. So is it really serving them to make it fearful rather than educational, rather than teaching people about the challenges that they might need to work through with their care provider?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to empower parents. So give them the knowledge of this is the way the system works,
Mhm.
this is policy, but you have the legal right to informed consent and informed refusal. So teaching them the skills, what does that look like? How do you make informed decisions? You know? And the question I always come back to is in situations, especially as a doula, you know, when you're in a room where a
Mhm.
woman is laboring and there's maternity staff, whatever, if there's a spat between the doula and the care providers, who is that benefiting in that moment? That's just like an ego fest
Mhm.
between the doula and the care provider in the who's right and like neither of them wanting to back down. And I actually think that's one of the most harmful things that doulas or birth workers can do. What would be better is being calm, supporting the client in that moment, making sure you maintain the oxytocin safe
Mhm.
space, you know, and then afterwards putting it in writing and sending it in to the right channels in writing, trying to organize a meeting. That way, then you actually have hope of creating change, you know, rather
Rather
than,
than conflict.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I
And
think
that's
that's
the way like I've always operated. And that's why I have such great relationships with a lot of the maternity systems. It doesn't mean I agree with how they're run with everything, but change takes time, especially in big organizations like maternity systems, and it's slow. Like, we know that on average, they're about 17 years behind the latest evidence based information, you know, so it takes time. But in order to create that change, it has to be met rationally,
yeah.
you know?
And it is hard when we're starting out because we are very enthusiastic and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, the passion for the work is there. But I think what we're talking about is making sure that that passion isn't harming anybody, you know, and making
Yes.
sure that we're still centering the person who we're actually supporting
Yeah.
in it all and not the bigger picture and not the advocacy and not our egos or whatever it might be, and being able to kind of learn that earlier on I think is really beneficial for people as well. There's a lot more, as we both know, that goes into kind of this getting started
Mm,
phase, and you've talked a little bit already around kind of getting your values right and your mindset and things like that. And I actually just recorded an episode for the podcast yesterday about doing your mission and your values.
great.
So it'll probably be out before this episode is.
Okay.
But the I think sometimes, you know, our values, they can feel so big and so passionate, but unless we can kind of really understand them ourselves, then they can we can run away with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when we talk about values, like I think of like core values,
Yes.
so like kindness, honesty, do you know, like things like that. You're not necessarily talking about the type of business you want to run.
Yeah.
You're talking about the type of person you are and what's important to you to maintain in your personal life and in your professional life, you know? So I think this is something that can be a stumbling block for people because they're like, well, I don't know what type of business I am and I have to
Mm,
start in order to figure it out and all that. But you can figure out who you are as a person, and then that's how you project that into your business then. Like the world is craving out for authenticity, isn't it?
mhm.
Like you can even see the change on social media. There isn't all these like perfectly polished grids anymore, or like the pages that are soaring are the people who are just sitting there chatting, being themselves, sharing their message. And that's what we need to project. It's like who you are, what's important to you, and then put that out in the world, because somebody who is drawn to you, Neve,
Yeah.
might not be drawn to me, and vice versa, or they might be drawn to somebody else out there. And that's amazing. There's
Mhm.
enough work out there for everyone. So it's like be your authentic self, put yourself out there, and the right people will find you.
And that really is it. There's always this fear of that there isn't enough work, or if someone else is starting the same work in my area, or else someone else is
Yeah,
already really successful in my area.
yeah,
How can I come into that? But as we said at the start, listen, there's plenty of babies and families to go around. So if we purely look at on numbers, that's a fallacy. It's completely out the window. And the other part is what you said there about how someone might want to work with me, but they don't want to work with you, or the other way around. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that is absolutely fine. I am fine with that, because if I'm not their cup of tea, I'm probably not going to be able to help them the best as I could, because if they don't
yes,
resonate with me, they're not going to get as much out of our interactions, whether that's when I'm supporting someone with breastfeeding or whether I'm supporting someone in business. It goes the same. So being able to kind of work together and see each other as communities, and helpful to each other. And we were lucky that because we trained in an organization, that was a normal part of that. We all had each other. And I'm sure in your doula trainings, you probably try and foster that between the group as well.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So like we create WhatsApp groups and people, stay in touch that way. And like I think as well what's important when we're talking about that community sport, it's being aware of who you're surrounding yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
and who is in your inner circle, because those voices are loud, and if you're surrounded by people telling you that you can't do this, it's never going to work, you're going to believe that. That saying, like, if you hang around with five smokers, you'll be the sixth. If you hang around with five, successful entrepreneurs, you'll be the sixth. So it's like pick your inner circle really well, and kind of maybe become aware with who you might need to create a bit of distance with.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe when you come away from a conversation with them, you feel drained, you feel your energy drained, you don't feel uplifted. So I talk a lot about that in my coaching, is who are your energy givers and who are your energy drainers. And when you look at how much time you spend with each of them, does that make sense
Yeah.
logically?
There is some people where, we do need to just kind of create that distance
Yeah.
with. And then sometimes, that's not always possible, because there might be very significant people in our lives. So it
Mhm.
can be more of I choose what I discuss with that person, rather than needing to necessarily create distance. Same as when we talk to parents about breastfeeding or birth, it's like choose who you seek support for on this particular
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding, like, if you believe that it's going to work out, it will. And if you believe it's not going to work out, it won't, So, like, your mind holds so much power. I think I'm lucky in that I'm the type of person that I fully back myself. So,
Hmm.
like, when I was setting up a doula agency in Ireland, everyone was like, there's no way that's going to fly here. That's such an American thing. Irish parents are not going to go for that. Like, it's going to fall flat. Doulas won't work for you. Like, it's,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada. There was a whole thing. We flew it. We worked with we had 45 independent contractors. We had two admin staff, my business partner and I. Like, we created deals with Irish health insurance for parents to claim back. That had never happened before. Got doulas Garda vetted. That had never happened before. So it's that belief of I don't care what other people say because I know this to be true, that this is going to work out. And whatever you need to get that belief. I'm a big, like a bit woo woo in these things. I'm very practical and very business minded, but I love a vision board. I love affirmations, gratitude. I fully believe in manifesting the life that you want, you know? So, whatever you need to get that self belief, get it. You know, if it's writing down an affirmation in the morning, if it's saying it again and again, whatever it is, I am a successful business person. I'm creating the life of my dreams is my core affirmation I say every day,
I love
you
that one.
know?
And like, so there is that nice bit when you're naturally, or you've developed that level of confidence already, that it comes a little bit easier to you. You
Yeah,
know, you've all, since I've met you anyway, you've always been a go-getter. You know, you've always been confident, you've always been ready to make shit happen. But not everybody has that innately, I
yeah,
suppose, in them.
yeah,
The things that you're talking about, kind of working on it and being able to work on their mindset. And that's when I started coaching as well, I was really, you know, everyone wants the strategy, everyone wants the how to, but really the how to is not worth the paper it's written on if you don't have the mindset that's going to underpin it. And it's definitely something that I have to work on quite hard. You know what I mean? It is something that I need to do regularly and kind of focus on and give it my attention. And it's definitely something I know a lot of the people that both you and I work with have to do as well. Like, it's something that we have to do rather than it just coming. But where I'm going with that is that you can do it. So a lot of people think, oh, I can't be like that. You know, I'm just, that's not the type of personality. I don't have that personality.
yeah.
But you actually absolutely can. It just takes a bit of work.
Yeah, and like, look, I've trained hundreds of people, you know, and no two people are the same. Introverts, extroverts, like people who come from corporate backgrounds who are switching career, people who had their babies young and were a stay-at-home mother or whatever. There's it can work for everyone, and it's about back to understanding who you are, what's important to you, but having that self-belief underpinning it. So I'm not saying you have to be out there taking on the world and speaking at big corporate events to be successful. You just have to have that belief that it's going to work out for you the way you want it to
Mm-hmm.
be. And that starts with understanding what you actually want, you know?
That's definitely a good starting point. And a lot of people don't know, or they're afraid. They're
Yeah.
afraid to even say to themselves what they genuinely want, because they might think either that it's impossible, or that it's greedy, or it's selfish, or whatever it might be. They're even afraid to tell themselves what they want.
Absolutely. And people say that to me all the time, exactly the words that you've just used, Neve, like, oh, but I feel selfish if I do this and the X, Y, and Z sacrifices. And I always stop and I say, okay, whose voice is that in your head? Because that's not your true authentic self. Your authentic self would tell you you can do anything that you set your mind to. So who has come in and at what point did you decide to listen to it? You know?
Yeah.
Because we can absolutely do anything we want. It might take us a year, it might take us 10 years, it might happen in a month, whatever it is, but we absolutely can do anything we set our mind to. But you have to know what you want first. Saying, oh, I just want to work with parents and babies is not enough. Get specific, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
really understand what you want. What do you want your day to look like? We often talk about, like I would with my birth doula clients, get them to write like a mind movie of what they want their birth, so their labor and birth to play out like.
Yeah.
And what does it sound like? What are you hearing? Like, what do you feel? What do you smell? Bring all the senses into it so you can really embody what you want to play out. And then we look at how can we get that? How can we help to stack everything in your favor to achieve that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's the same with business, like understanding like what you want your day. If you woke up in the morning, what does your day look like from when you open your eyes to when you close your eyes that night? You know, and like how much time is going to your business, how much time is going to the yucky admin stuff that everyone avoids, including me,
Mm-hmm.
how much time is going to your family and your friends or for yourself, you know, like what brings you joy and are you making enough time for that? So really like playing out what you want that to look like and keeping that in your mind's eye, whether you write it down and you're reading it or you just keep visualizing it, you know, and it will come once you have that clear.
It's exactly that. We know these tools already because we do them with parents, so we're doing the visualization, we're doing the planning, we're doing the preparation with parents for their birth or their breastfeeding journey or whatever it might be. So when birth workers are coming into this work, they often have the tools to support
Absolutely.
themselves, but don't necessarily use them. So we talk a lot to parents about kind of managing those voices that come in. Who is that that's saying that to you, or what, where is that coming from? Is this true? So are
Yes.
those negative thoughts true? And we can do the same for ourselves in business. I think something that I find helpful for some people is when say, well, if they're kind of talking themselves down like that with that negative self-talk, is if your friend came to you and said the same thing, what would be
Yeah.
your response? And
Yeah.
it's usually a lot kinder.
Absolutely. I know we can be so hard on ourselves. And I used to think it was just an Irish thing, but actually, I've worked with people globally in the last year, and it's actually a global thing, you know? And I think social media has a large part to play in that because people put this image out there, that's not always necessarily true. And we believe it.
Yeah.
We absorb that and we think, oh, look at this person and they're so successful and they're always, doing with their makeup and everything. Like, I'll tell you now, for anyone who's watching, like, I literally in the last half an hour quickly did my hair and threw on a bit of makeup because I was like, this is say to me, coming on the podcast. Nobody lives their life going
No.
around looking like that. I look like I've rolled out of bed and into my sweats most days, and that's okay because you can still show up and
Mhm.
run a successful business and support parents being you. Nobody is perfect.
And I think that's really helpful for like that for everyone who's already feeling that. But for people at that start of their journey where there does feel this desire to be perfect, or to, just this fear that when I put myself out there, people are going to judge me.
Mm,
And, it's a normal fear, but it doesn't necessarily
absolutely.
resonate in reality. That I've had very little negativity towards me in the last 7 or 8 years that I've been doing this work at all. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
unusual.
Yeah, I will say on the flip side, just out of pure honesty, right? I have had a lot of negativity, but
Okay.
I think it was mostly around the doula agency and people just thinking there'd be no work for anybody if I have a doula agency,
Okay.
and that would take a lot of the work. And a lot of doulas in Ireland, especially, didn't like that we were professionalizing doula work, like having insurance, Garda vetting, being covered with health insurance. They didn't like that because a lot of doulas in Ireland didn't even have insurance.
Okay.
So there definitely was negativity, but what's incredible is sometimes you might be the trailblazer or the industry
Mhm.
leader that other people then follow. And now when I turn around and I look at doulas pretty much across the board in Ireland, everyone has like a website, social media pages, they're insured, they're Garda vetted, they're often part of a professional organization. And that safeguards them and their
Yeah.
family, but it also safeguards the families. And then the wider umbrella of that is it safeguards the profession, you know? Because people see doula work then as a profession and not a volunteer role. So I think if you're seeing there's something in your area, whether you're in a different country or whatever, or in your field that you're working in, and you can see a way to make it better, you might be the trailblazer. And that's exciting and scary at the same time. But you have to learn how to let it just water off a duck's back. If people have a problem, that's their problem. It's not yours to take
That's
on.
it. And if you truly believe in it, then that's what's right for you. It's that's where people to think I get stuck. They get more worried. They know that what they want to say is what they want to say, but they get
Mm,
worried. Well, but what will the other people think, or what will the people who are further along than me think? Or someone might be looking at my post and they'll say, "Oh, even that information is inaccurate," or whatever. So
yeah,
people can get stuck up in a lot of that. But practice, I think, is what gets them through it. And I suppose the
yeah.
last thing I feel that is really the most beneficial thing for people starting out, and even in continuing in their business journey, is having some level of support somewhere. You talked earlier about the people you surround yourself with. So your supports
Mm,
can be your peers, it can be those people. Again, we want to make sure that if we're supporting it, if our peers are our support, that they're not caught up in a negative cycle of, oh, I can't get any clients, this isn't working for me. You know what I mean? That they're not necessarily the peers we want to support ourselves with either. And also seeking out other supports if that's what's needed, because just like parenting, kind of being a solo business owner isn't really a very normal thing to do. If you know what I mean, like from a society point of view, we're supposed to have
Yeah.
more people around us.
Yeah.
So having that community is important as well.
It is. And you know what? If you don't have people, so like if you haven't taken, say, a training with me and like have that community, or you're in some industry like an IBCLC, maybe where it's harder. And so join organizations if you can, like Alki in Ireland or whatever it is, wherever you are. But if not, seek out paid professional support. So I have paid thousands and thousands over the years for coaching for myself. And I still now, even though I'm a life and business coach and 100 other titles, like I still regularly take trainings. I still regularly have coaching sessions in areas where I feel I need guidance or there's a gap in my knowledge base. And also remembering that the world is constantly evolving and changing. And with this work, there's lots of new evidence coming out, but also in business, things change all the time. I know every time I think I have a grip of like Instagram or whatever, something changes and I'm like, why Instagram? Why would you do that to me? So there's constantly changes. So like pay for the supports if you don't have people around you that you can lean on, because guaranteed if you're paying someone to get you to where you want to go, they're going to get you there much quicker.
Absolutely. And it's about allowing the people who've gone before us to help us as well, just like we're trying to do as birth workers. You know, we understand that paying for support is valuable for parents. And then sometimes we can kind of get stuck in paying for support for ourselves in our businesses. And I know it's definitely the best thing that I ever did was, you know, saying I'm going to put money into this and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find someone that can help me figure that out. And it's definitely something that has been the best thing for me, because I spent 3 or 4 years trying to figure it out on my own. If I had that support earlier, you know, like you said, it could have been months or a year rather than such a long time.
Yeah, and the best in the world have coaches. And so like I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Tony Robbins, you know, one of the global thought leaders, like coaches Oprah and stuff, he has a coach. You know, so there's no shame in it. It's like it's actually the sign of a successful business mindset if you can say, I need support in this, in whatever field it is, you know.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us, Jen. So if you have
welcome.
kind of parting words for those people at the start of their journey, and anything that you feel has been unsaid so far that you want to say, and also let people know where is best to connect with you as well.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of the basics. I think the main thing is find the person or the organization that really resonates with you and your ethics and your values and your goals. Build your community, understand that your mindset holds more power than nearly anything else. And like just be careful of what you're absorbing from your people around you, but also online. You know, I think we have to be so aware to what we're listening to, what we're watching, you know, what's draining our energy or making us feel less than, and just unfollow, stop watching it, whatever it is, stop reading the books that make you feel that way, and like take in everything that builds you up and gives you that self-belief.
I think that's a lovely way to end. So just let people know where best to connect with you, Jen.
Yeah, so I have my coaching and my doula trainings, and it's just jen-crawford.com. And online for my coaching, it's Jen Crawford Coaching. And for the doula stuff, it's Jen Crawford Doula Wisdom.
And I'll put all of those links in the show notes as well, so people can find you easily. It was lovely chatting with you. Thanks so much. And for everyone who is listening, feel free to reach out to myself or Jen online via DM. We love hearing your thoughts on the podcast and anything that has resonated with you. And I hope you have enjoyed this episode.